The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, and help me welcome John Coughlin, who is running for county attorney in Hillsborough County in the coming election. John, welcome to People's View.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for having me on your program.
Well, I'm happy to have you here. You have an impressive biography here, and there's a lot of things that you've done over the years. I don't know what you'd like to focus on, but going from college through the law school and several services to the Marines and a lot of activity over there, and then retiring as a county judge. Seems pretty impressive.
Well, I've been fortunate. My wife, Pam, and I have been very fortunate. New Hampshire has been very, very good to us.
Well, she's been good.
We're both from New Hampshire. I grew up in Nashua. My wife grew up in Portsmouth. And we met at University of New Hampshire.
Well, that's the best way to do it, I guess. Get together at the right time, the right age, and you made a beautiful life for yourself, and you've done a lot for the services in New Hampshire. As I said, I was very impressed with everything, and your wife did too. She served as records,
state representative, and then register of deeds.
But also in the county, she served as I'm forgetting the word. Anyway,
she is running for. I'm sorry, she is running for state representative in Amherst.
Oh, is she? Good. I didn't know that.
She is. Yes. Once more into the breach.
You're giving both barrels to the county, huh? Well, it's going to be a job, I think, as county attorney from what's been happening over the last year or two. And you think that you're ready for it? I mean, you're going to have to clean the shop up, I think, a little bit.
Well, one of the first things I did before I made my final decision was to call Dennis Hogan. And a lot of people know Dennis, and he was not going to run, and he has endorsed me. So I would not have run if Dennis was going to run. I think he did a good job under very trying circumstances. But as I was sitting in senior status on the bench, of course, I was reading the newspapers or the media accounts of what was going on with the county attorney's office. And frankly, it was embarrassing to have the AG's office have to come over and take over the county attorney's office for 9 months. Many years ago, in 2002, I was elected as the Hillsborough County Attorney. I was the first Republican in many, many years to have that position. And I was there for 11 months, but I resigned when my National Guard unit, the 197th Field Artillery Brigade out of Manchester, deployed to Iraq. I was the brigade JAG, the judge advocate. And so there was no way I was going to let them go without me. Because, once you're part of a unit, you go with the unit. And so I had to resign the position. And while I was in Iraq in 2004, Governor Benston nominated me to be a presiding judge in Derry. So I came home for the public lynching, as I call it, the public hearing, was sworn in, and then went back to Iraq to finish my tour in Iraq. That was in 2005, and then started to sit in 2005. And then there were a couple times, 2007, I volunteered to go back to Iraq, and I went and I was with the Security Transition Command in Baghdad. And part of my responsibilities, or a good part of my responsibilities, was working with the Iraqi government, the Ministry of Defense, and their JAGs to build up their military courts and military court system. So basically, I worked with the General Counsel's office for the Ministry of Defense in Iraq, and I was able to see the first post-Saddam Hussein military trial. There was a trial that we held. We built trial courts for the Iraqis. We were instrumental in getting military judges appointed, getting their legal advisors trained, picking the legal advisors, having them assigned to different units of the Iraqi army. And so it was, in fact, we were doing training. We had a 2-week course for the Iraqi lawyers. There were a number of female lawyers that were in the Iraqi army, and that was very unusual. And I predicted that the women would fit 1, 2, and 3 in class, and I was off. But there was one woman that finished second in her class, and we were very proud, obviously, that the Iraqis took this seriously, and they always treated us very well. So I have some sense of what it's like to be able to establish or reestablish the rule of law, and have advisors and have lawyers involved in that process, policies, procedures, things like that. And so that would be instrumental in going into the county attorney's office.
I think so. I think you, with your experience on both sides of the bench, you appreciate the whole activity, and you want to make it mesh right. I think that's one of the things. The organization's very important in the county.
Of course, there's a court, especially district court judge.
Right.
There's a lot of administration that goes on in terms of managing a docket. Sometimes we'll have 40, 50, 60 cases in the morning, and you have to run through the docket. And when I was in the Marine Corps, when I first started out, I remember one of the older lawyers, judge advocates, telling me that to treat all Marines, even though they were defendants, because I was a prosecutor at one time, to treat all Marines with respect, because they went through boot camp and they are Marines. And that I carry that through my judicial career as well as a lawyer, that you treat everybody that comes before the court with respect, whether or not it's the prosecutor, the defense lawyer, victims, defendants, plaintiffs, things like that. Treat them the way you want to be treated. Very simple process. And as a judge, it was really, I was talking to my wife earlier. She said, well, that's really sounds very simple. I said, it is very simple. As a judge, you call them the way you see them. You apply the facts to the law. It's sort of like the umpire. I wish we had baseball because I love baseball. So when the umpire behind the plate is calling balls and strikes, it's either a ball or a strike. It's either one or the other. You apply the facts to the law. Does it fit within that zone? Or if there's a foul ball, does it hit the foul line, or is it fair ball? Has the runner been tagged, or did they miss the tag? Did he touch the base or not touch the base? So it really is kind of simple. I had the opportunity to go out and meet police chiefs, defense counsel, and chat with them before the pandemic. And the pandemic kind of put an end to that for a while at least. But I listened to what their concerns were and what some of their ideas was. And I thought it was very important to go through that process. I hope to get out there now that things are clearing up a little bit. And I think what we can help with the county attorney's office, communication and cooperation. That's very important to be able to go to and speak with the local police chiefs in towns and cities and have them provide input into what the process is. What does the county attorney do? A lot of people aren't sure what a county attorney does. Generically, you're the chief law enforcement officer of the county. You're responsible for all prosecutions. You're also accountable to the attorney general's office. And what that means is you try the felony cases and also misdemeanor appeals. So you have a large office. We have the largest office here in Hillsborough County. We have a northern district up in Manchester. We have a southern district in Nashua. And there's about 25 assistant county attorneys with a full staff and victim advocate group as well. So there's a lot of moving parts, shall we say, with regard to the county attorney's office. And one thing that was, when I was here in 2002, what was lacking was policies and procedures. So that policies in the northern district are very similar, the same as what's going on in the southern district. So that you have the people that come before the court should be treated the same, whether or not you're in the northern district or in the southern district.
Well, very good. I think you hit one thing that was a problem from what I remember reading in the paper. Is that's the communication with the different town police forces and city police forces, and the how things are handled with all the people that you're dealing with.
Right, and it really deals with communication. My last tour, 2010, 2011, to Iraq, I was a chief administrative law officer. United States Division North. So Iraq was divided basically into three parts. You had Baghdad, which was a big area in terms of numbers. And then you had the southern, then you had northern. We were at a place called Cobb Spiker, Contingency Operating Base Spiker, which is right outside of Tikrit in northern Iraq. And we had all the administrative actions north of Baghdad. And I was chief. So we had, at the division level, we had 3 brigades below us. And I remember one time we were on telephone conferencing with the brigades. And one of them started talking about an issue that I wasn't aware of. So I said to myself, Self, that'll be the last time that'll ever happen. So what I did is that weekly I would call the 3 brigades. It was elements of the 1st ID, 1st Infantry Division, 1st Brigade, 4-1. It was the 1st Air Cav, 4th Brigade, and then 225, which was the 25th Tropical Lightning Division, the 2nd Brigade. So I called each one of those brigade JAGs. I said, "What's going on? Tell me what's going on." So I would never not know what's going on, because a lot of times the administrative actions come from our higher headquarters, but they're also doing some administrative actions. And the whole point is if the commanding general, and it was General Perkins, by the way, who was, I think, born in Goffstown, but grew up in Keene, David Perkins. He retired as a 4-star general. Now he's up north, living hopefully the good life because he earned it. So the whole idea was is that when my boss, the staff judge advocate, went in for his weekly brief with the general, he had all that information. So if the general asked him, well, what about this with this administrative action? And we had a lot of administrative actions. For example, there was a whole host of activities that would generate investigations. They called them in the Army 15-6 investigations. And an investigating officer would be appointed, and we would sort of shepherd that investigating officer through the investigation, review the report. For example, if a soldier was killed, there would be an investigation. And the purpose of that was to find out what happened, what went wrong, what went right. How can we do this to prevent further instances of KIA or accidental death or serious injuries. So it's very important. And the same thing with the county attorney's office. There needs to be a link between the county and the towns and the cities, and more specifically with law enforcement. And so you have to know what's going on with the law enforcement agencies and down to the smallest agency. I was able to, before the pandemic, I went out to see the Mason chief, Kevin Maxwell, and I hadn't seen him in years. He had been a police officer, the prosecutor, when I was in practice over in Milford for a long time. So it was fun to go out there and see that he had retired from the Milford Police, and then part-time is now the chief of Mason. So I tell that story because it was kind of fun to go out there. If you've never been to Mason, what a beautiful community that is. And that really is New Hampshire at its finest. So those are the sort of things that I would continue to do if I was elected as the county attorney.
Have you started your campaign then, or is that part of it, going out to bring up the old relationships so you know who's there and what's happening? Yeah, well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I've never been on Facebook before. As a judge, we're prohibited from any political activities. We can't do this, we can't do that, and not a good idea to let your opinions be known unless they're a legal opinion. So I was able to be introduced into the world of Facebook, and we did hire some young people to help us develop a website. Wayne McDonald is helping me quite a bit, and so we hired 2 young people to help us do the Facebook and the website. And my goodness, they're young. They're younger than my youngest son, but they're absolutely brilliant. They know what's going on. So I was able to create a website, johncoughlin2020.com, and also have a Facebook page. I see. Well, good. One of the ways we're getting out. Plus, my wife and I were at a sine wave over in Pelham. We're in Pelham last night doing a sine wave. So we're trying to get out there. It's kind of rekindling, because I was very active politically before I became a judge. And so it's kind of fun to be out there meeting new people and seeing some old faces. For example, I went to Nashua in January, and Al Sonata was there, and Roberta. Oh, right. So my goodness, I hadn't seen them in years.
And Al and Roberta were wonderful and helped me a lot when I ran back in 2002. So it's good to see that they're in good health and still very active.
Yeah, yes, and his son's a lawyer too, as you know, and so he's doing well in his business. But how does it feel getting back to campaigning, doing something that you really didn't have to do in your previous jobs?
Well, yeah. Well, that's interesting. It's interesting, too, when you say campaigning, because as we know, when judges are appointed or nominated in New Hampshire, a lot of times that's shall we say, quasi-political. Because I know the governor set up a commission, and Chuck Douglas is involved with that, where they interview candidates and then make recommendations.
Right.
In New Hampshire, of course, potential judges are nominated by the governor and have to be approved by the council. But other states, they have their own ways of selecting judges. Some are appointed, some are selected, then they have to be reappointed after a period of time. Others are elected. So it's really interesting depending on what state you're in. For example, when I was in Iraq in 2007, in the Green Zone, there was a Superior Court judge from Alaska named Charlie Ugolay. And he had been appointed as a judge, and I think it was by Governor, as vice president with John McCain. So that was back in 2007 or thereabouts. Yeah, Governor Palin. So different methods. So I think once you I think there is a certain amount of political process to the nomination and then getting approved. But once you're selected as a judge, once you're sworn in, then all political activities stop. There are some generic exceptions. For example, if to support legislation regarding the law, I testified at a state Senate committee hearing regarding improvements to the law, things like that. So judges, I think you could be a moderator, like a school moderator, things like that. But again, political activities are very limited. But it's interesting as a judge too. It's sometimes difficult to see all those things that are going around you and not be able to say anything about it. And you can't say anything politically. You can't say anything publicly. Privately, you might go home and chew your bottom lip for a while, but then the next day you have to go back and resume your position. But you always have to remember that that's your job. I accepted the job, so I have to accept the fact that my speech was somewhat limited during that period of time. But now it's not, so it's great. As a retired judge, I as far as I know,
communication. Yeah, communication is going to be an organization is going to be your hardest thing with the new coming into a group that has had problems over the last year and a half. But the other thing I wanted to make sure you know that this is this recording is able to be put on your website. I'm sure your people know how to do that. Okay, and if you have any questions, we can talk to them about that. Thank you. I think your wife knows how to do that, so she's she's been on the show before. But anyway, it gets on YouTube also. So, can you say what do you need help in the campaign? Do you need some people? Do you need any kind of help along in developing your program?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up. I couldn't hear the question.
Okay. We'll try it again. Basically, what I want to know is if you want to let the audience know whether you can have some help in certain areas or whether you want people to sign up to help you on sine waves like you did or to help you in passing out literature or whatever. Oh,
okay. Well, I could give you my email and my phone number, but I have a website that's still a work in progress. It's John Coughlin 2020.com, and my email is coughlin.jpjuliapapa@gmail.com, and my cell number is area code 603-769-7499.
Okay, very good. Let's get out, and if anybody wants to contact you, wants to help you, please, John is welcoming all calls. And you got a big area, though, for the county. It's quite a few people that you have to try to communicate with. Are you doing anything special? Are you holding any kind of town meetings or types of things like that?
Yes, I'm trying to go to the GOP town meetings. I've been to Nashua, Manchester. So I tomorrow, hopefully, I'll be over in Milford. I've got to Pelham. So I'm trying to do all those. It's great to go out and see all the folks out there too, and reconnect. And as I said before, to meet some new people. There was I see a lot of it was interesting because I was listening to Bill O'Brien when he was doing Right of Center.
Yes,
and they had that young man Ryan Rell on. If you ever want a wonderful guest, you have to get him on the program. At such a young age, he's so articulate and so focused and has so much poise. I think he's a real rising star in the Republican Party. It was unfortunate that the circumstances that thrust him into the limelight. But boy, I think he's going to be he's going to do a great job if he's elected up there. He's got a tough row to hoe too in terms of Ward 4 in Nashua.
That's right. Yeah. Although 2010 we had a person in that ward, one of Dennis's relatives.
Who was the last?
2010.
Who was the last one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
2010 was the last one. That's when we took a lot of the representatives back. We took in 22 out of 28. But anyway, he's having an event in Nashua on the 3rd of July. So,
not only has Dennis Hogan endorsed me, but Gary Lambert from Nashua. I'm sure you know Gary. So I get an interesting connection in Nashua. Of course, I grew up in Nashua. So I'm in Baghdad at the Al Fawd Palace, which is right outside of Baghdad near the airport. And it was one of the larger bases that we had. It was a beautiful facility for the Ba'athist parties. They built this huge recreational facility with lakes. They had fish hatcheries there. They would release the animals. And the Al Fawd Palace was the main palace. We converted it into office space. And so I'm in my cubicle as a legal advisor, and I get an email from Griff Blanus, and I've known Griff for years. And he said, Joe, be on the lookout for Colonel Gary Lambert. He's a friend of mine from Rotary, and he's supposed to be going to Iraq. I said, look out for him. All I have to do is stand up in my cubicle, and I can see him over at the next area. And Colonel Lambert was the number 2 lawyer in all of Iraq, legal advisor, sometimes number 1. He asked me to become the legal advisor. He was for the Combined Review and Release Board. He was the chairman of that board. What it was coalition and high Iraqi officials. It was a committee that they put together where we would review detainees. So when the good guys, the coalition forces, rolled up bad guys, detainees, they didn't call them prisoners of war. They called them detainees. They were entitled to a review every 6 months. And Gary was the chair or the president of that committee. And this was really at a high level. So I traveled with Gary, Colonel Lambert, on a number of convoys in and out of Baghdad, the city of Baghdad, other places. And I would say, Gary, I was very impressed with Gary. He was the real deal. I'd stop by. I was a major. He was a colonel. I'd stop by to pick him up for breakfast often. And we were in the trailer, his trailer. And he'd say, John, call me Gary when we're alone. I said, yes, sir. and I called him sir. He was a great guy. He was a colonel in the Marine Corps, and he had such an incredibly important position. I had a lot of respect, and still have a lot of respect for Gary to this day. And we still are good friends.
Yeah, he was a good person. We got him elected. But we're going to have to end ours now. But, John, we do want to do it again, maybe a month before the primary. Okay, so we'll get in touch with you, and we'll set up some. And hopefully maybe we can work out so we don't have some of the breakup that we had this time. But, okay.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you for having me on the program.
Thank you for being here, and good luck on your campaign.
Okay, I'm sure I'll see you. Thank you.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.